What would you do if you had all the time in the world? Is that an intriguing question? What would you do if you had all the time in the world? Some of you are like, I'll play video games all day long. What would you do? What if, but let's add something to it. What if you stopped growing old? What would you do? Would you go back to school? Would you start a new career? Would you travel? Maybe meet some new people? Would you? All of the above, George says, right? But wait a minute, because you need something to do all that stuff. You need some money, right? So would you just start saving a lot of money? Because you got lots of time. So just save and earn and, try to make your life comfortable so that you can do all these things. Now, if you're like me, you probably came up with a bunch of ideas that you would never say out loud because you would sound like a jerk, okay? But so in order for us to deal with that feeling, maybe we would say something like, well, I would figure out how I, got this ability to live forever, this gift. And I would try to help other people live forever too, right? Does that sound good? Sound I'm a good person, sharing my gift with other people, except for the evil people. We can't let the evil people live forever. No way. Imagine all the damage they would do if they could live forever. Evil people living forever? No, they would have to die for sure. But wait, that sounds wrong. Maybe they don't die. Maybe we just put them all together on an island by themselves and they can destroy each other. How about that? But what if some of them escaped and they had children, evil children, and then they multiplied and they took over the world? What a mess that would be. But then how evil would you have to be to get on this island? Like how evil would you have to be to deserve to die? Like just a little bit evil? What's the evil threshold there, And then who gets to judge the evil people? So you need a whole system on judging evil people. But what if evil people got in charge of that system and the system became evil? And what if it's not really their fault that they're evil? What if someone else made them evil? Do they have to, get put on this island, or do they have to die just because someone else made them evil? This is getting way too complicated. You can see. One of the main things the Bible does is it explains why there's evil in our world. Why is the world the way it is? How did things get this way? Were we just meant to be born and live the best we can and then start decaying and ultimately die? Where did evil come from? How did it get here? Is it just part of nature? Do we have something to do with it being here? In other words, did humans cause evil to come into the world? There's this movement right now. It's called transhumanism. Who's heard of transhumanism? Nobody's heard? One person has. Anybody else? Yeah, heard some about transhumanism? I and 3 people are the only ones who ever heard about transhumanism, but it's a new thing. And it's what it is this very rich and powerful people are getting together, and they believe that the next evolutionary jump for mankind is through technology and artificial intelligence. So, next time you say, hey, Alexa, I just messed up everybody's Alexa right now. You say, Alexa, artificial intelligence, but times 1,000,000. So the next jump in human evolution is going to be because of technology and artificial intelligence. We are going to be like partial robots and partial people. It's a real thing. They believe that through technology, we'll be able to live forever. Or at least they'll be able to live forever. I don't know about you and me, but they will be able to live forever. So they're trying to solve this problem. It's the death problem. The other problem, though, is they're not talking about the evil problem. They're trying to solve the death problem. They don't have a great solution for the evil problem. And the Bible claims that the death problem is caused by the evil problem. It also claims there's a solution for both of these problems. You and I and everyone else are in the same boat. We're dying. And some of us, we might be alive, but we're not necessarily living. So the Bible claims that everyone can have a new life and live forever. It's a very bold claim. Everyone can have new life and live forever. So we're going to look at how evil entered the world and how it brought death, but how anyone can have new life. And this is found in Romans chapter 5, verses 12 through 19. Now, this is the Apostle Paul writing a letter to the Roman believers. And Paul is a very technical writer. He uses a lot of reasoning and logic. And so it can be a little bit difficult if you're not familiar with his way of reasoning to track. But this is Romans 5, verses 12 through 19. Let's read this together. When Adam sinned, sin entered the world. Adam's sin brought death, so death spread to everyone, for everyone sinned. Yes, people sinned even before the law was given. But it was not counted as sin because there was not yet any law to break. Still, everyone died from the time of Adam to the time of Moses, even those who didn't disobey an explicit commandment of God as Adam did. Now Adam is a symbol, a representation of Christ who was yet to come. But there is a great difference between Adam's sin and God's gracious gift. For the sin of this one man, Adam, brought death to many. But even greater is God's wonderful grace and his gift of forgiveness to many through this other man, Jesus Christ. And the result of God's gracious gift is very different from the result of that one man's sin. For Adam's sin led to condemnation, but God's free gift leads to our being made right with God, even though we are guilty of many sins. For the sin of this one man, Adam, caused death to rule over many. But even greater is God's wonderful grace and his gift of righteousness. For all who receive it will live in triumph over sin and death through this one man, Jesus Christ. Yes, Adam's one sin brings condemnation for everyone, but Christ's one act of righteousness brings a right relationship with God and new life for everyone. Because one person disobeyed God, many became sinners. But because one other person obeyed God, many will be made righteous. So you see what I mean about the way Apostle Paul writes? You're doing this the whole time. Like, where's he going? He's talking about, there's a ton in there to try to pull out. So we're just going to take it a little bit at a time. So whether people realize it or not, people have been trying to deal with guilt for a very long time. God bless you. What are some ways that people deal with guilt? What are some ways they deal with guilt? Well, one, blame. What's someone else's fault, you see? Another way people deal with guilt is penance. I'll pay for my sins through my good deeds. I'll do good things to pay for my sin. Another way they deal with their guilt is punishment. I get what I deserve. I'm going to accept my punishment. Another way to deal with guilt is denial. Just say, I'm not guilty. Guilt doesn't exist. And then there's denial's cousin, and that's redefinition. I just changed the rules. It's kind of like denial, but just change the rules, and then I'm not guilty. But the other question here is, who do I pay for my guilt? And that answer should be pretty easy. If I steal from someone, I should pay that person back, right? But that doesn't seem to get rid of all the guilt. Is there someone else that I owe? And this isn't hard to understand either. If someone were to hurt one of my kids, it would be like they're hurting me as well. Even if they make it right and apologize to my kid, I still feel like they've wronged me. When God was giving out the rules to the Israelites, he kept saying, this was back at Mount Sinai when he gave the 10 Commandments and then all these other rules. God kept saying something very interesting. For example, let's say, here's one of the rules. someone committed murder in a town. Okay, God said that the leaders of that town and the people of that town should punish that murderer. If they didn't punish the murderer, God said that the land would be cursed. What does that mean? And then if they did punish, if they gave justice by punishing the murderer, the land would be cleansed. Again, strange language. Why would the land be cursed? And why would the land be cleansed based on people's guilt and their innocence? This is something that we modern people have, we're not good at this, okay? Because we tend to think, in the West especially, that our sin is personal. At best, it's between us and the person we hurt. We think it doesn't go much further than that. And it's a modern problem with mostly individualistic cultures. But in honor cultures, which you typically see in the East or even in Africa, you have the honor cultures. This is not a surprising concept at all. We tend to think that our faith is personal and private. I believe in God. I pray to God. It's between him and me, maybe just my family, and that's where it stops. But when you ask people why they believe that or explain why, they really can't. The reason they can't is because it's primarily shaped by their culture, not shaped by the Bible, because the Bible doesn't teach that. Our culture, how we were brought up, the people around us, the things that we've absorbed just by living in the world that we live in, makes us think that our faith is personal. The Bible doesn't teach that. So do our actions affect the world in ways that we're really not aware of? Here's what Paul is getting at in Romans 5. He goes all the way back to the first human. Okay, the very beginning. Genesis, not the very beginning, but Genesis chapter 3. Okay, the fall of Adam and Eve. First human, Adam, disobeyed God. He broke the trust between him and God. In the Bible, sin isn't just an action. It becomes something tangible. It's like poison. It seeps into the ground and it fills the atmosphere. It changes the nature of things so that it seems to even be hereditary. It's like when you go to the doctor and he asks, is there a history of cancer or heart disease in your family? One of the first signs or symptoms of this poisoning is guilt. And how do I know that? Because you have Adam and Eve hiding from God in the garden. They're guilty. They're hiding. That's what guilty people do. They hide behind lies and half-truths. They first lie to themselves. They say things like, I'm not that bad. It's not my fault. The devil made me do it. Or they'll say, you know, God, that really is a dumb rule. Why is it wrong to eat fruit? Fruit's good for you. Shouldn't we be able to eat fruit? If I got caught eating the fruit, this is what I would say. I'd say something like this. God, do you know how much vitamin C is in this fruit? This is really good. How do you expect me to get enough fiber if I can't eat this fruit? And if you really didn't want me to eat it, why'd you put it down so low? You should have put it higher so that I couldn't reach it. And why'd you have to make it look so good? Why couldn't you make it look like liver and onions or something? That would be something I wouldn't eat. And besides, everyone knows, as soon as you say I can't have it, then I'm going to want it. So really, God, shouldn't you take some responsibility in this whole mess? I mean, that's what guilty people do. Paul reminds us, evil came into the world because the first humans didn't listen to God. Think of it this way. God is the sustainer of life. So separation from God leads to eventual death. It's like not plugging your phone in to recharge it. Eventually, it's going to die. That's where evil and death came from, to the point of even changing the nature of our world, the land, our universe even. Because every person is affected by this. Every person disobeys God. Doesn't mean his standard of perfection is separated from their life source, from God, and eventually decays and dies. Here's the Bible's claim, and it's a bold claim. Everything that's wrong in your life and everything that's wrong in the world is because we're all guilty. That's how evil and death got into the world. That's how the door opened for evil to come in. So then we say, well, what's the solution? What's the solution? And that's where Paul makes this comparison. He says that Adam is like Christ. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a strange comparison. How are you going to compare Adam to Christ? Well, he says, through Adam, sin, evil, decay, death, it entered the world. It's like the person who invented the beat that we got disco from. If only we could go back in time and fix that, and we could change that. But, we thought we had it in the 80s, the fix for disco in the 70s, but that didn't work. And so what really did fix it was the 90s. But then the 90s produced like Jonas Brothers and Justin Bieber. So I don't know where we are now. We can't get that back into the box. Adam's like Christ, because through one man, sin entered the world. And through Jesus, the world is saved. But he says, hold on, not exactly. Paul puts the brakes on. He says, it's not a one-to-one comparison. In fact, why don't we just let's read Paul's writings on this. Verse 15, we'll read this again. Here's what verse 15 says. But there is a great difference between Adam's sin and God's gracious gift. For the sin of this one man, Adam, brought death to many. But even greater is God's wonderful grace and his gift of forgiveness to many through this other man, Jesus Christ. Even greater. It's not the same, but it's kind of the same. Evil came in through Adam. Life comes through Christ, but life is so much greater than the evil. People talk a lot about what would it have been? What would our world have been like if Adam and Eve never sinned? And so then they ask interesting questions like this. What if in heaven someone sins again? Will everything get messed up again? Will it be just like it was before? Heaven is not a redo of this world. That's not what it is. It's not a redo of the world before sin. It's not like you die and then game over, right? And then you start the game over. This isn't Jumanji. It's something entirely new. That's what this life is for. That's the purpose of this life. This is what most people say, and yes, even Christians don't fully get this all the time. According to the Bible, this is the life where you choose to either live under the curse of Adam or you live the new life of Jesus. This is our chance, and this is why it's so important, and that's why Jesus came to earth, because this is the life that changes the next life. And this is where even many Christians have gone sideways. They say, well, it doesn't really matter so much what you believe, just as long as you're a good person. Don't hurt anyone. And what they rely on is tradition and culture. They say, well, my family is Christian. I grew up Christian. I was baptized. I went through the classes. I did all the right steps. But have we dealt with the problem of our sin? What we're saying is we can't contain that. We can't account for it. We can't pay it back. We can't put it back in the box. It's like having a cold virus and sneezing in the middle of a crowd, and you try to collect all of the particles and put it back into a bag and seal it up. You can't do it. So are you trying to deal with your guilt, or are you willing to give all of your guilt to Jesus? That really is the question that Paul is asking. Are we willing to give all of our guilt over to Jesus. You say, well, how do I know if I'm trying to deal with my guilt? How do I know if I'm being honest about my guilt? Well, here's an example. If somebody would say, well, I got myself into this situation, so I need to get myself out of it. Maybe it's something like, well, I married the wrong person, or I got in the wrong relationship, or I didn't work hard enough at school, and so I'm not successful, or I got mixed up with the wrong crowd, and I went in the wrong direction. I invested in the wrong things. I lost a lot. There will be a million failures that you can blame yourself for. So what are you going to do? You say, I got to change my circumstances. I got to fix things. If I could just improve my situation, then I'd be happy and I'd be content and I could unload this guilt of my past decisions. But you have a problem. You're running out of time. Do you even have enough time? Even if you did have enough time, how do you know you could do it all? How do you know that you could repair it all? Unless we're not running out of time. I'll go back to the first question. How would you live if you weren't running out of time? How would you live if you had all the time in the world? I want us to read verses 15 through 17 one more time. And I want you to tell me which word jumps out at you. Okay, which word it just keeps jumping out. Here's verses 15 through 17, just 3 verses. But there is a great difference between Adam's sin and God's gracious gift. For the sin of this one man, Adam, brought death to many. But even greater is God's wonderful grace and his gift of forgiveness to many through this other man, Jesus Christ. And the result of God's gracious gift is very different from the result of that one man's sin. For Adam's sin led to condemnation, but God's free gift leads to our being made right with God, even though we are guilty of many sins. For the sin of this one man, Adam, caused death to rule over many, but even greater is God's wonderful grace and his gift of righteousness. For all who receive it will live in triumph over sin and death through this one man, Jesus Christ. What was the word? What do you think? Gift. I tried not to lead you too much, but I was like, in 3 verses, how many times does Paul say gift? It seems like he wants to know that God wants to give us a gift. It seems that that is the priority, not penance, not blame, not punishment. Those are not the words he's using that God wants to give to us. He's not saying, well, God wants to punish you, so you'd better do a bunch of things to get yourself right with him. That's the only way you're going to deal with your guilt, you know, is if you pay God back. If you can earn a gift, it's not a gift. The definition of a gift is it's free. And Paul is telling us over and over, God is giving us a gift. Some of you may still be carrying the weight of the guilt of your past. That's your life in Adam. Here's something we really need to ask. Have you received the gift of grace from Christ? If you're saying, well, if I can just change this or that in my life, then I'll be happy. If I can just get to this point, then I'll have peace. Then people won't be able to hurt me anymore. I'll be immune to the effect of sin in this world. Maybe some of us are trying to be a Christ for ourselves. We're trying to be our own Savior. Well, I was rejected. People didn't think I'm cool. People didn't think I was impressive or successful. So I'll give my life to proving them wrong. I'm running out of time, though. I need to make up time for my past. So what do? You end up trying to save yourself. You become a Christ for yourself, but you're not the Christ. What happens if things go badly? What if things don't go according to plan? What if your kids let you down and they're a disappointment? What if you get demoted? What if you don't get invited to the party and you're rejected? What if you can't afford nice things? Suddenly the weight begins to crush you. Guilt, sin, separation. I'm trying to save myself. You're working so hard to be happy. Do you know God told Adam after the fall, God told Adam that the curse would be that life would now be hard, difficult. He'd have to sweat, and the land would fight him. It would produce weeds and thorns, and it wouldn't give up its crops easily. That's our life in Adam, working so hard for so very little. We work just so hard, and we just get this little bit of time in this life of maybe health, maybe, if we're lucky, of maybe some prosperity, maybe a nice life. Doesn't take long where it all starts to unravel. That's our life in Adam, working so hard for so very little. You may think, well, Steve, I'm still paying the consequences of my past mistakes. Okay, fair enough. But here's the difference. If you've received the gift of Christ, you're not dying. You're living. You're truly living. You have new life, which means you have all the time in the world. And this life is God's question to each of us. Will you accept the gift of life? That's what Jesus is asking, and that's what Paul is reminding us. Will we accept this gift, not something you can earn, gift of life? What is that? It's the righteousness of God. We say, I can't meet God's holy standard because his standard is perfection. I'll never be perfect. I'm already at a deficit. It's like I said a few weeks ago. If you get one question wrong on the quiz, you can never get back to 100. We've got more than one question wrong. We can't meet God's perfect standard. It's his righteousness. What is his gift to us? His righteousness. His perfection. It's you being right with God, and that is all that you need. That is everything you need. Knowing that you're living, you're not dying. You're not under the curse of death. You're not under the curse of Adam. What does that make you want to do? Does it make you want to make Christ first in your life? Or to keep him as an add-on, a good luck charm, my get out of jail free card so I can move along the game of life, so I can, kind of deal with this guilt. But really, mostly I'm doing the work. And Jesus, he just cleans up the rest. Does it give you a sense of humble gratitude and maybe compassion for others to know that you've been given a free gift? Does it give you, I love this, a calm patience, knowing that you don't have to carry the load of worry for everything that's gone wrong in the world, or even everything that's gone wrong in your life? I told someone recently, just this past week, there's been something I've been working on with God. And this isn't new, and it's not my idea, but God just hit me with it recently. And that is, when I watch, or I should say, when I read about Jesus and how he interacted, he never seems like he's in a hurry. And yet, almost every week, there's something that's got me wound up that I'm in a hurry for. If I don't get this worked out, it's going to be bad. Something bad is going to happen. I got to get to this. It's this sense of pressure and anxiety and worry. Jesus never lived that way. I think that's part of what it means to have faith, is to say, God, you're in control. How can you be a messenger of the gift of life this week? If you've been given the gift of life, then you've got an assignment. You're supposed to be a messenger of this gift. Now, you can't think yourself into that. You have to have a change of heart. And it's got to come out of you that way. You have to truly, totally accept this gift. You can't take it in part. You can't say, God, I just want part of that gift and I'll pay for the rest. Then it's not a free gift. You have to totally take God's gift of his righteousness, his perfection, his holiness. Let it set you free. Let it take root in your heart. What I mean is your desires, your emotions, your ambitions, your logic, everything about you. You have to receive this free gift of God's perfect holiness, his righteousness. And then you're a messenger. People are full of guilt all around you, and they don't know what to do with it. Penance, blame, punishment. It's not my fault. Everybody's trying to unload their guilt. Paul says it'll never work. It's the cause of evil in the world, and it's the cause of death, is our separation from God caused by our sin. How can you help people with that? You can't just say, it's okay, God forgives you, move on. No, they need to receive that gift, just like you've received that gift. How will you help them receive it? All of us want to do something important with our lives. All of us want to contribute. All of us want to say, I want to do something big, God. I want to be a part of something that has meaning. I think most of the time God just says, will you do the easy stuff? Will you do the simple stuff? Maybe there's a difference between easy and simple, because most of the time what we explain is simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy to do. But if we can't do the easy stuff, how's God going to call us to do anything difficult? Let this free gift from God take over your life. Receive it. His righteousness, his perfection, his holiness, poured out and given to you. It's called the gift of grace.